Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today, well, it's pretty specific. We're looking at this really unique intersection of a tech relaunch and a kind of foundational philosophy.
Yeah, it's not just a standard update announcement.
Exactly. We're not just reading a press release. We're really getting into a document or a set of sources that feels like both a technical roadmap and, honestly, a community manifesto.
That's the perfect way to put it. Our source material today dives into what they're calling the magnificent return of the new ONPASSIVE ecosystem.
Right.
And what makes it stand out, as you said, is how it deliberately weaves these big system updates together with this almost visionary explanation of why everything took so long, why it happened the way it did. So our job here is to unpack the core claims, the promises being made, and really understand the philosophy that Ash Mufareh says is guiding this whole massive digital rebirth.
Yeah, rebirth is the word they use. And the language, it's designed right from the start to lift this whole thing beyond just, regular company news. The sources immediately frame it as transformative, a rebirth of purpose, a second wind. It feels like an immediate attempt to give it almost cosmic significance. Right?
It does. And so our goal for you listening is to quickly grasp the strategy behind that framing. We need to figure out the components of this magnificent return, not just what's here now, but what guiding principles, what ideas define that long, complex period of preparation they went through.
Because that preparation part, it isn't treated like a footnote in these sources, is it?
Not at all. It's positioned as the absolute foundation of the whole story. And that, I think, is where we need to begin our analysis.
Okay, so let's dig into that idea of preparation. The sources say that's the real starting point. The story they tell us begins right where faith meets patience. It frames that whole preceding time, maybe months, maybe longer, as this necessary journey of just enduring. And it says, Ash Mufareh achieved the impossible by finally delivering this new ONPASSIVE ecosystem after all that quiet building and refining.
And what's really fascinating right off the bat is how the source material manages the community's expectations around that timeline.
Instead of saying sorry for the wait.
Exactly. Instead of apologizing, the narrative kind of weaponizes the wait. The sources insist that the time spent wasn't a delay, it was strategic. They literally say, every moment of waiting carried value.
Carried value. That's a really key bit of psychological framing, isn't it?
It is. It turns what could be seen as absence or doubt or just problems into this deliberate, calculated preparation.
So how does that play out strategically? Because, for someone maybe a bit skeptical, a long wait usually signals, well, tech problems, maybe funding issues, something going wrong behind the scenes.
Right, that's the default assumption.
But this material just reframes it completely. It pushes back hard, arguing that while maybe others were questioning, Mufareh was busy envisioning, and while some people doubted, he was designing.
So the quiet period wasn't stagnation. It was presented as this necessary crucible, a time of really intense, high-level work that couldn't be rushed.
It sets up the strong contrast about the impatient people versus the true visionary.
Precisely. And the analytical point the source hammers home is that time itself proves the vision. The claim is, and it's a strong one, that what is built on vision cannot be shaken by time.
Okay.
So the logic goes, if the system and the community's faith can survive that long waiting period, that endurance test, then the resulting ecosystem must be inherently strong. It has a foundational durability that, supposedly, can resist future problems or market shifts.
It's like a philosophical insurance policy against, the usual tech volatility.
You can see it that way, yeah. A kind of resilience baked in through the waiting.
And that focus on durability, it leads right into how they talk about leadership, specifically Ash Mufareh's leadership style. The sources highlight it, defining it as being never about short-term excitement, which, let's be honest, is pretty different from the usual Silicon Valley playbook of quick releases and constant hype cycles.
It really is. It suggests or claims a commitment to something more sustainable, something deeply integrated. The stated goal was always long-term empowerment.
Right.
So therefore, the return of this ecosystem, when it finally happened, had to be presented not just with more promises, but with actual tangible proof. Proof that came directly from that time spent waiting and building.
And the philosophy behind that is, well, it's pretty grand.
It is. The quote is, great things take time because great things must last forever.
Must last forever. I mean, that really lifts the whole project way beyond typical business goals, doesn't it? We're talking about building a legacy here.
Exactly. The new ONPASSIVE ecosystem is described as being eternal in spirit.
Eternal in spirit.
Meaning it's supposedly designed to serve not just the people using it now, but future generations. That kind of commitment, if genuine, moves the whole thing far away from just chasing quarterly targets. It reinforces that idea that visionaries do not chase moments, they create movements.
And creating a movement, well, that needs total conviction, doesn't it? A long-term view that goes way beyond wanting quick results.
It does. And that deep belief system is absolutely key to framing this return as a renewal of destiny, not just a restart.
Okay, that's an important distinction. A restart suggests something failed, right? Something had to be scrapped and begun again.
Precisely. So let's maybe dig into that difference a bit more. How does the source make sure the community sees this as a renewal, which keeps the original mission safe, versus a restart, which might imply, losing steam or purpose?
Yeah, how do they protect that original idea?
Well, a renewal means the core destiny, the fundamental heart of the system, is still there. It's just being expressed now through better, more powerful technology.
Okay.
The source material is really clear on this. The underlying heart is still about lifting humanity. That purpose is presented as the constant, the moral compass. So while the ecosystem comes back with, yes, cleaner interfaces, smarter AI, better connections, the core mission isn't changed, it's just sharpened. The renewal protects that foundational identity.
And for the community, the founders who just went through that really long wait, the sources talk about faith being key to getting back on track. The argument seems to be that when people felt lost or maybe unsure because things were taking so long, faith is what resets focus. It calls the founders to rise up, reset, and refocus on that bigger purpose, getting past any frustration about the delay.
And the leader's role here is absolutely central. Mufare becomes the anchor, the one who brings that vision back into sharp focus for everyone. He reminds the community, in the words of the source, that they have to rise again with gratitude, with courage, with unstoppable belief.
So it's this whole philosophical grounding, the idea that the wait was strategic, the vision is strong, the purpose is eternal. That seems to be the essential setup before they even get to the tech details.
Exactly. It's structuring the narrative so that when the technology is introduced, you're already viewing it through this lens of high purpose, not just looking at speeds and feeds.
Yeah. Right. So moving from that philosophical bedrock to the actual stuff, the tech, the sources promise a huge leap forward here. The system comes back, and the quote is, stronger, faster, smarter, and holier in intent than ever before. Now, let's pause on that phrase. Holier in intent. I mean, in the context of a tech platform, how do we even interpret that? It's blending spiritual language with, code and servers.
Yeah, it's definitely language that makes you stop and think. We need to ground the metaphor, right? Holier in intent, in a practical business and tech sense, probably signals a commitment to ethical design.
Okay. Ethics.
Yeah, purpose-driven technology. It implies certain things.
Yeah.
Maybe a strong stance on ethical data handling, transparency in how things work, socially responsible algorithms. It suggests the system is designed primarily to benefit the users, the humanity they talk about, maybe before maximizing profit, unlike some other models.
So it's about lining the tech with that high moral purpose we just discussed.
Exactly. The source explicitly says Ash Mufareh revived hope in digital form. The implication is that the code itself, the digital architecture, is meant to be a physical manifestation of that higher intention.
Okay, that makes more sense. That's the connection. And the sources list the physical upgrades, cleaner interfaces, deeper intelligence, broader connection as direct results of this deeper, holier intent.
Right. They're presented as evidence of it.
But to make this real for people listening, we need the specifics. And the sources do provide the proof, as they call it, in the form of the integrated platforms.
They do. The text lists 5 key platforms that are now supposedly fully integrated, working together, and all speaking this language of abundance and purpose.
Okay, let's tick them off.
They are OConnect, OShop, OWallet, OVerify, and OPeer.
Right. Let's maybe break those down a bit. In an ecosystem that's supposed to be about abundance and unifying the globe, what does something like OConnect need to be? It can't just be another Zoom clone, right?
No, based on the grand narrative, OConnect would have to aim much higher. To deliver abundance, it likely implies, well, superior performance, maybe near zero latency, high-def video, handling massive numbers of users globally at the same time without breaking a sweat.
Scale.
Huge scale, yeah. And importantly, within this unified ecosystem, you'd expect OConnect to be deeply tied into other parts, maybe linked to user identity through OVerify, and perhaps monetization tools through OWallet.
Ah, okay. So meetings could become fluid, maybe even transactional events, not just communication.
Potentially, yes. Tuning communication from just a tool into part of this collaborative abundance engine.
Okay, next. OSHOP. E-commerce. That's a crowded space. What could OSHOP possibly offer that fits this holier intent idea?
Well, if the whole system is about lifting humanity and collaboration, maybe OSHOP is designed to be an e-commerce space where transactions are easier for the community members, perhaps offering them better profit shares, or unique ways to distribute products or services within the ONPASSIVE world. And it would have to integrate perfectly with the internal payment system, O-Wallet, right? Making buying and selling across borders totally seamless for the global founder community. Like an internal economy designed to keep value circulating inside the ecosystem, maybe prioritizing members over, say, external credit card fees.
Which brings us to O-Wallet. That sounds crucial, the central money engine. How does that specifically support this promise of financial freedom and maybe even spiritual freedom?
O-Wallet seems positioned as the practical hub for all the promised abundance. By having one central integrated place for payments and managing funds, it could massively simplify global transactions for founders, removing the usual headaches and high fees of international banking.
Right.
So for a founder looking for that freedom, O-Wallet represents control, hopefully transparency, and quick access to the rewards they've earned. It's the mechanism that actually delivers the financial side of the promise made for their patients.
Makes sense. Then there's O-Verify. Sounds like identity, security, trust infrastructure. Why is that piece so vital in a system that's built on faith and aims to unify globally?
Because trust is everything, isn't it? Especially when you're talking about a global, maybe somewhat decentralized community, and potentially large sums of money moving around through O-Wallet.
Absolutely.
So O-Verify acts as that foundational layer. It ensures authenticity, security. It's the tech that backs up the claim of networks that protect. It verifies who is who, maintains the integrity of transactions, and ultimately helps maintain that holiness or ethical standard of the user base they're aiming for. You need to know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, you do. Okay, last one. O-Peer. Given all the talk about community and collaboration, what do we think this platform is actually for?
O-Peer sounds like the social and collaboration engine, but again, viewed through that specific ONPASSIVE lens of abundance and purpose.
So not just another Facebook.
Probably not. Not driven by ads and endless scrolling, you'd imagine. In this context, O-Peer likely suggests a platform focused on enabling meaningful business connections, maybe mentorship between founders, sharing resources effectively. It's where those founders become the pioneers and ambassadors the source material talks about. It provides the actual tech infrastructure to make sure collaboration, not competition, is what drives the system forward. It underpins that whole unified global strategy.
It's interesting how right after listing those tools, they drop that metaphor. This ecosystem is your field of harvest.
Yeah, that metaphor brings it right back to the user benefit immediately. It tells the community, these aren't just apps. They're your tools to cultivate and reap tangible rewards, that abundance, based on the effort you put in.
But they don't stop there. They go deeper into what the source calls the soul of the technology. This is where that spiritual dimension really gets emphasized again.
It is. The source insists the real magnificence isn't just in the hardware or the software, but in the soul inside them.
Okay, but how do they define that soul? What does it actually do?
They define it through its actions, its operational nature. It's described as compassionate. We get specifics. AI that understands, automation that cares, and networks that protect.
Right. AI that understands. I'm genuinely curious, what practical features would an AI need to have to earn that description?
Well, it implies more than just task completion, doesn't it? It's just a deep level of personalization. Maybe machine learning that figures out an individual founder's specific goals and then proactively adjusts the ecosystem's tools like OSHOP suggestions or OConnect scheduling to help them achieve those goals faster.
So the tech isn't just reactive, it's proactive and aligned with the user's success.
That seems to be the implication, that the AI is fundamentally designed to serve the user's progress in a more, understanding way. And the automation is framed as helpful service, not just replacing people. The networks are about safety.
So the big claim is the synthesis. The whole ecosystem represents a divine alignment between technology and humanity. It mirrors compassion somehow in a digital space.
That's the core assertion, yeah. A very high bar they've set for themselves.
And this ambition, this moral alignment, it sets up a really powerful story about innovation. The source even predicts that future generations will remember Ashmufara as the visionary who built a digital arc for humanity's progress.
That digital arc metaphor is loaded with meaning, isn't it?
It really is.
An arc implies protection, preservation, especially during turbulent times.
Yeah.
Here, the flood is maybe the chaos and cutthroat nature of the traditional digital economy.
So ONPASSIVE is the safe haven.
That's the idea. A structured vessel designed to carry the community safely through the storm towards that promised land of abundance, a vehicle for a generational journey forward.
And within this arc, even the smallest actions are given weight. The text insists that every click, every transaction, every digital handshake now carries meaning.
And that's a key mechanism for keeping users engaged and invested, isn't it? If every little thing you do matters, it elevates you from just being a passive consumer.
Right, you become an active participant.
Exactly, an active participant in this grand, purposeful mission. You're not just buying something on OShop. You're contributing to the validation and success of the whole system's holier intent. It connects your individual effort directly to the big, collective, global purpose. It tries to shift the whole user experience from just transactional to something transformational.
Okay, so let's shift focus now to the payoff. The rewards promised to those people, the founders, who stuck it out through that long preparation phase. The sources are crystal clear here. This magnificent return is explicitly framed as a reward for every founder who kept the faith.
Yes, and they're quite careful to define that reward structure broadly. It's holistic. Financial freedom is definitely acknowledged. It's kind of the entry point.
The necessary foundation.
The necessary foundation, exactly. But the source insists the reward is much bigger than just money. They promise that spiritual and emotional freedom follow close behind.
Okay, for the practical listener, how do we unpack that? How do we separate the, let's say, visionary poetry of spiritual freedom from what the system actually does for a founder? How does that freedom actually show up?
Well, I think it shows up as the psychological return on their investment of time and faith. Once the financial stress is theoretically handled by the abundance flowing through O-Wallet, then the founder is free from other pressures. Maybe the stress of constant competition, the anxiety about market ups and downs. This frees up mental energy, frees up time.
Which allows for
Personal growth, maybe focusing on bigger life goals, community work, whatever aligns with that lifting humanity mission. That's where the spiritual and emotional freedom comes in. It's positioned as the ultimate validation of their loyalty and patience.
So the wait wasn't just about building the tech.
No, the narrative suggests the wait itself was forging the very foundation of the reward. It proves the guarantee that loyalty, effort, and patience will speak value. It connects directly back to Section 1.
Right. And this whole structure, the rewards, the purpose, it seems to demand a big shift in how community members see themselves, right?
The relaunch comes with a transformation of identity.
Absolutely. And this transformation is strategically vital if you want to scale this kind of movement globally. The sources outline 3 key identity shifts. Founders become pioneers.
Okay.
Customers become beneficiaries.
Right.
And believers become ambassadors of change.
Let's look at those roles. Why change founder to pioneer? What's the function of that?
Well, the founder did the initial heavy lifting, the waiting. Now, as a pioneer, their role shifts to actively charting the course forward, promoting the system in their own regions, maybe being the first success stories. They're the standard bearers now.
And customers to beneficiaries.
That emphasizes receiving value immediately. They're not just buying, they're benefiting from the system's abundance. This naturally generates positive word-of-mouth, real-world testimonials.
And believers to ambassadors of change. That's the evangelist role. They're tasked with spreading the mission, the philosophy, globally. This whole reframing really empowers those who were there from the early days when, as the source says, no one noticed. It tells them their early work, their foundation, now holds the future.
So this strategic scaling, this transformation of roles, it leads straight into this grand idea of a global awakening. The source material claims the impact is already happening from Africa to Asia, from Europe to the Americas.
Yeah, it positions the system not just as a product, but as this truly unifying, border-crossing global phenomenon, which of course serves a strategic purpose in the competitive tech landscape.
And part of that strategy is the claim that the whole paradigm is shifting away from competition towards collaboration. That's a bold claim for a major digital ecosystem. How does the narrative actually support that? How does this system supposedly favor collaboration?
Well, the implication is that the design of the ecosystem itself encourages it. Think about the integrated tools. O-Peer for networking, O-Wallet for seamless value exchange, O-Shop for shared commerce. The idea is that everyone benefits more when the whole system succeeds, so collaboration becomes the most logical path to maximizing that abundance.
So collaboration scales the rewards faster than fighting each other would.
That seems to be the argument. The source claims Mufora's vision has unified continents under one digital roof. That digital roof, the ecosystem, becomes the space where collaboration is not just encouraged, but maybe structurally rewarded.
And this global scale, it dramatically elevates the status of the individual founder, doesn't it? They're not just users anymore.
Not at all. According to this narrative, every founder becomes something much bigger. A bridge between nations, a messenger of abundance.
Wow.
It transforms their personal, maybe initially local, investment and belief into something with global reach and utility. Their own success story is framed as being directly linked to how well they help connect and build the global community. The mission expands outwards. Shared planetary prosperity, not just isolated individual gain.
Okay, as we move towards the end of the source materials narrative, the focus really shifts. It's less about looking back at the patients and more about issuing this powerful call to action for the future. The community is urged to dream again, to rebuild stronger, to believe bigger.
Yeah, this is where the narrative really cements the path forward. The return of the ecosystem, the magnificent return, isn't just presented as, okay, the tools work now. It's positioned as signaling a new rhythm for life, business, and connection.
A new rhythm.
It's an attempt to completely reset the daily expectations of the community. To say, look, the struggles, the limitations, the waiting of the past, that's over. This is the new normal.
And even just logging in each day is given this, well, almost ceremonial weight, isn't it? The sources frame every login as a declaration, a shared statement. We are back and we are better.
It's clever reinforcement. It makes routine interaction feel meaningful, revolutionary even. It keeps the energy and belief high, especially right after the launch. And furthermore, the sources do something interesting. They place the founders right inside this grand historical narrative. They state that the founders are living inside a prophecy of progress.
A prophecy of progress.
Yeah, so their participation isn't just, a smart business move. It's framed as an act that fulfills a predetermined positive future. It adds another layer of significance to everything they do within the system.
Let's focus on that core legacy statement you mentioned earlier, that Mufore turned technology into testimony. What exactly does that phrase signal to the listener about this ecosystem? What's the power in that?
Well, a testimony is powerful, isn't it? It's usually seen as irrefutable proof, often based on personal experience, sometimes spiritual experience.
Right, firsthand evidence.
Exactly. So when technology becomes testimony, it means the success of the system itself, how fast it is, how much wealth it generates, its global reach, all of that serves as the undeniable proof. Proof that the underlying philosophy, the endurance, the faith, the ethical intent was right all along. The product working becomes the validation for the community's long wait.
So it's the ultimate payoff for the patients we talked about way back in Section 1.
Precisely. And the sources really drive this home by emphasizing that those original founders, the ones who endured the wait, they'll be remembered in the movement's history. Remembered as those who believed when belief was hardest.
It recasts their patience again, doesn't it? Not just waiting, but foundational courage.
Yes, exactly. Courage becomes a key quality needed to reach this promised golden era. It solidifies that whole narrative. Perseverance and loyalty are the highest virtues here, and it ensures that the initial group of believers holds this permanent, respected place within the organization's story.
So this magnificent return, even though it's this huge technical achievement, it's very clearly positioned not as the finish line, but as the starting line for something much bigger.
Absolutely. It's explicitly defined as the beginning of a golden era of empowerment, innovation, and divine purpose. The closing words of the source material really bring all these powerful unifying themes together. They attribute the success not just to the tech genius needed to build the digital ark, but fundamentally to the moral integrity, the love of the leadership.
And it concludes with that incredibly potent, unifying statement about leadership, doesn't it? That through Ash Mufareh, God has reminded the world that when the right man leads with love, the whole world rises with him.
Yeah, and that line just brings the entire narrative arc from the philosophy of patience through the tech of the ark, all the way to the global ambition, right back full circle. It places everything under this single, unified, almost divine moral canopy. #Hag outro.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive, really an exercise in decoding narrative strategy as much as understanding tech. We've traced how the language strategically took a long waiting period and reframed it as valuable preparation, turning potential negatives into virtues. Then we saw how that philosophical grounding was supposedly manifested in the technology itself, this digital arc, with all its integrated platforms designed for abundance and that holier intent.
Yeah, it's really a masterclass in narrative construction, aimed at turning users into true believers, into evangelists. The key takeaway, I think, is how successfully the narrative elevates loyalty and endurance, maybe even above quick wins.
Right.
And it promises this reward that's not just dollars and cents, but something deeper, spiritual, emotional freedom. By recasting users as these pioneers and ambassadors, the relaunch effectively harnesses belief and patience themselves as tools for global unification and growth.
It really shows us, doesn't it, that engineering the story, defining the golden era, setting up the prophecy, guaranteeing that holistic reward was just as critical, maybe even more critical in some ways, than engineering the actual code.
Absolutely.
This strategy transforms what could have been just another corporate launch into a potential movement. It gives us a clear picture of how deep conviction and foundational beliefs are used to frame and drive a major technological undertaking.
Which brings us neatly to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, maybe chew on. If this whole ONPASSIVE ecosystem, this digital arc, is genuinely designed, as they claim, to be eternal in spirit, meant to serve generations, and if it's truly guided by this very specific, holier in intent purpose, this moral compass, then what kinds of systems? What checks and balances, what accountability structures would need to be hard-coded, essentially, into the technology and the governance?
Right, to keep it on track.
Exactly. To maintain that original pure purpose over decades of massive global growth, inevitable market pressures, and just change. How do you make sure that the soul inside the system, as they put it, actually stays intact for the long haul?
That's a big question. Something to definitely think about.
Think on that until our next deep dive.